Dr. Fauci was running this task force, or call the vice president who was going to be in a few weeks named as the head of the task force. Call someone. He didn't do that. He organized a conference call with 11 virologists, and him and Dr. Collins, who control this fiefdom and all the money and power that you talked about, Senator, they said, we're going to handle it this way. We're going to cover it up.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Truth Over News. That was Congressman Jim Jordan telling Senator Roger Marshall about the big elephant in the room, the one that no one seems to want to talk about. When Anthony Fauci found out on January 31st, 2020 that the COVID-19 pandemic likely started in a Wuhan lab, a lab that he had funded, he did not tell anyone. Instead, he covered it up. That wasn't just bad manners, it was criminal. Concealing material information within the jurisdiction of the executive branch of the United States government is an offense. And it was an offense with terrible consequences. Who can doubt that the White House would have responded very differently if they'd been told that there was a lab-made virus out there that is specifically tailored to latch onto human lung cells? China would have been shut off immediately, and the past 2 years would have turned out very differently. But instead of being charged with concealing material facts, Fauci continues to be celebrated by Biden and by the establishment. Disney even made a movie about him that is so obsequious that it rivals North Korean biopics on Kim Jong-un. But the tide may finally be turning. There's the recent admission from the heads of the World Health Organization and the Lancet Commission that the virus came out of a lab. More importantly, there will be a likely change in congressional and Senate leadership in November. As Congressman Jordan and Senator Marshall discussed last week, plans are already on foot for how their investigation will proceed.
You don't bring in Fauci for a deposition right away. You start by looking at these folks who are on the call, get all the documents you can, unredacted form. So that's something that needs to happen. I'm hoping the Senate's going to be in Republican hands. We're hoping the House is going to be that way as well. And we're already talking about joint type of investigation we can do because the country deserves the truth.
Clearly, there needs to be public accountability, and one way of getting that accountability is through congressional hearings. Why did the United States government pay Chinese scientists to play around with dangerous viruses? Why did US researchers provide state-of-the-art biotechnology to a hostile regime? Why was funding arranged through a shady so-called non-profit that also happened to receive lavish funding from the Pentagon? There are many such questions that Congress should look into, but while we may learn a lot about what happened, there will likely be no criminal prosecutions. Congress cannot charge anyone. That can only be done by the Department of Justice. We also need to recall that the House has already taken measures such as defunding Peter Daszak's EcoHealth Alliance, the so-called non-profit through whom Fauci funded the Wuhan lab, and nothing changed. The only way that lessons will be learned and consequences suffered is through criminal proceedings, and yet that path remains largely unexplored and unreported. To be fair, some people did raise the prospect when Fauci lied to Senator Rand Paul last year.
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Notwithstanding Fauci's exasperated protestations, that was a straight-up lie. He did fund gain-of-function experiments at the Wuhan lab. In fact, he had outsourced the work to China because Obama had banned gain-of-function experiments in the United States. How do we know this? Because Daszak personally thanked Fauci's organization for approving the gain-of-function work to go ahead in China while Obama's moratorium was in effect. The problem is that Congress can't charge people for lying, only the Justice Department can. But while Trump associates are regularly targeted, Fauci remains completely scot-free. Let's go back and analyze the case for Fauci to be held criminally accountable outside of anything to do with Congress. Fauci was appointed to Trump's coronavirus task force on January 29, 2020. 2 days earlier, on January 27th, Fauci's office received an email from Peter Daszak, the man through whom Fauci was funding the Wuhan lab. The email's subject line was Wuhan novel coronavirus, NIAID's role in bat origin COVs. NIAID's role in bat origin coronaviruses. Yes, it really says that, and it must have set off massive alarm bells within Fauci's office. The body of Daszak's email provided Fauci with talking points in case he was asked by the media about the collaboration between himself and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. At the time of Daszak's warning, there had been no public reporting on the link between Fauci and the Wuhan lab. But 4 days later, on January 31st, that changed when the journal Science published an article that indirectly linked to an article co-authored by the Wuhan lab's director, Shizheng Li, and Ralph Baric of the University of North Carolina, the godfather of gain-of-function experiments. She and Baric had created a genetically modified bat coronavirus that was able to infect humans. And Fauci had funded the work that got them there. A fact that was prominently noted in Shi's and Barrick's article. It was at that point that Fauci panicked. Daszak's talking points weren't going to cut it. He had to launch a full-fledged cover-up, which is exactly what he did the next day, February 1st, when he convened a secret teleconference among leading virologists. Those virologists told Fauci that the virus likely came out of a lab. Christian Andersen said that the virus's features looked potentially engineered and that they were inconsistent with evolutionary theory. Robert Garry stated that he could not see a plausible natural scenario where you went from a bad virus to COVID-19. Yet Fauci stayed quiet and saw to it that 2 history-changing publications resulted from his secret teleconference. First, a statement was published in the medical journal The Lancet. That statement categorically dismissed the possibility that COVID came out of a lab. Second, a more detailed study, albeit a fake study, was published in the journal Nature. The study falsely claimed that there was no possibility that the virus could have come out of a lab. And who co-authored the Nature paper? None other than Christian Andersen and Robert Garry, the same scientists who privately told Fauci that the virus was not natural. Andersen's and Garry's fake Nature paper became the go-to source for ridiculing the lab leak theory. And Fauci made sure to spread the word. On April 17, 2020, right in front of President Trump, he brazenly promoted the Nature article as incontrovertible proof that the virus came out of nature. Fauci didn't tell anyone about his own role in creating that article.